Hey, welcome back to the Full Weight of Joy podcast. My name is Tammy and I'm your host. And today I'm just going to dive in because I think that self-awareness kind of gets a bad rap. I think that people, we look at self-awareness, and I know in a lot of ways is like, well, we think that it just has to do with self-care. That when you're self-aware, you know what you need in the moment. But can I tell you that this tool, that understanding and having true self-awareness is so much more than just understanding what you need to take care of yourself? And so that's what I want to talk about today. Like, let's talk about the reason why. The reasons we need to dive into self-care. No, self-awareness a little bit more. That self-care, yes, it's a big part of it. When you understand what you need, how you need to feel, and how you need to take care of yourself, yes, super important. But if we only think of self-awareness in the terms of what fixes us or what helps us feel like at peace, I think we're missing a really big aspect of self-awareness, because there's a lot of things that if we're not self-aware, if we don't truly know, and one of the stats that I was reading is one of the recent studies done was they asked people if they believe that they're self-aware. And 90% of the people said yes, that they are self-aware. And then when I started diving in and asking them questions about themselves and the self-aware, only 10 to 15% actually were self-aware. And what I think this is because we think on the surface level. We think on the surface level, if we know what we need in the moment, that we're self-aware. And I think that we're missing out a huge opportunity here. So I wanted to talk to you today. I just want to talk about what self-awareness truly means and really what the benefits of it are and why it's not selfish. It's way beyond self-care. And actually, it's part of leadership. It's part of our increased confidence. Because if you know your strengths, your weaknesses, your gifts, your talents, your motivations, your fears, you can have confidence in yourself. Yes, even if you understand your fears, you can have confidence in knowing the antithesis of that. You know what you need in order to overcome your fears. And self-awareness is the tool that allows this. As Christians, we are called to serve. We're called to be a light on the hill. We're called to die to self initially, like essentially. We are called to be the body of Christ. If you don't know what your purpose is, if you don't know how God wired you, how do you know which part you're supposed to be? How do you know what lights you up and what your best gifts are if you haven't discovered them? And this is why self-awareness is way more than just understanding your likes, your dislikes, understanding if you're an introvert or extrovert, understanding if you are an activator or an integrator. There's so much more to it. And so today I wanted to keep it simple. I wanted to talk to you about some reasons why self-awareness and like diving into who you're created to be will benefit you. And so we're going to start. I have my list here on my computer screen, and we'll just see how many I get to, because I have a feeling there's going to be a tangent or two in here. And I want to allow for that because, again, once we understand how God wired us, and I know He wired me to talk. He wired me to, well, I know that my journey through self-awareness and understanding how I want to respond versus how I want to react and how my gifts, my strengths, it has enabled me to get out of my comfort zone, to go and step into my purpose and my calling, and to serve in a way that's authentic and the real me. And so I wanted that for you too. So the first is just improved decision making. When you are self-aware, your decision making process is so much more succinct. It is more developed. It is, and it's not like you have to sit in every decision. You have a 30-step process to make the decision. No, if you understand your core motivations, you understand your strengths, you understand what your purpose is, and you know how God wired you. When you're looking to make a decision, you can ask you if it aligns or not. And so it streamlines some decision making. And so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you have a new decision to make. Every time you're trying to decide what the next step forward would be, you don't have to go to the starting point and reinvent every option. Like, you can take what you know about yourself, how God wired you, who He's called you to be, and you can start from there. The next is enhanced emotional regulation. This one is, I have teenagers. I am so thankful that I understand what my triggers are that send me through the roof. That I know these because it's not on them to not trigger me. It's not on them, and they're teenagers. They don't even have that capacity, right? They're emotional beings, whether they believe it or not. And even when you are with anyone, it's not someone else's responsibility to take care of your emotions. It's your responsibility. And so if you know what triggers you, you know what emotional states allow you to, to manage or avoid situations, then you're going to it's going to be easier to deal with people. You'll like people more if you understand what you can easily deal with and what you can't. If you recognize that you're in a middle of a conversation and it's going in a direction that you don't want it to go into, you can identify it before you say something that you don't want to say or do something you don't want to do, and you can find a way out of it. So this emotional regulation, enhanced, emotional regulation helps. And so you can be more thoughtful rather than impulsive. The next one is stronger relationships, because you don't expect others to fill what's not theirs to fill. When you want a relationship with somebody, whether it's a friendship, romantic, your relationship with your kids, even, when you are self-aware, you don't need them to validate you. You don't need them to, even depending on what your love language is, yes, you can, show love, but it fills your love bucket. It doesn't, it overflows your love bucket. It doesn't fill it from zero. Like, that it's not their responsibility to take care of your needs. Like, that's what we have God for, right? That's where we are. It's important for ourselves to build that relationship. And so by the stronger relationships is when we know our communication style, when we know our strengths, when we know our blind spots, then we can build these healthier relationships because we're not dependent on other people to decide for us. We come to the table with a healthy persona, and that they can come to a table with a healthy persona, then we've got a really strong relationship. We don't even need to see eye to eye and everything. We can have that mutual respect because we're not looking for validation. We're not looking for your approval. We're looking for an understanding. And it's actually, it builds your worldview as well, because then you can ask them questions about why they believe a certain way or how they came to a conclusion. And it's okay if you came to a different conclusion, if you believe in a different way, but you can have those conversations, and it builds a stronger relationship. The next, I already mentioned, the increased confidence. When we understand our strengths and our limitations, we know how to work around them. We know how to lean into our strengths in time of weaknesses. We know where to pray. We know what our weaknesses is, and we can bring in someone else who covers that. And so by understanding having the self-awareness, it increases our confidence. The next is a greater empathy. This one, I mean, all through school to be a therapist, I've always had this level of empathy. But when I'm able to step back and realize that it's not about me, right? And I can see things from other people's perspectives. This is what the Enneagram did for me. When I realized that other people's motivations were different than mine, I could step back and I had a greater understanding and a greater compassion for others. what they've been through, what they're going through, the way they think about things. And so this, when you understand your own emotions and your own behaviors, you're able to give other people grace, and it's easier to relate to others or to understand building the deeper connections. And so this greater empathy comes by you understanding yourself first. And then it doesn't have to be about you. In a moment, you can step back and because you can take care of your needs and you can be completely present for the person in front of you. A clear purpose. If you listen to me at all, you know that purpose is one of the things that drives me. Helping you discover your purpose and then live it, do the thing that God's called you to do. Well, self-awareness helps that because not only it will help us to understand why He has given us this purpose, but what do we need to do in order to act? The self-awareness will do that. And well, we can see, because when we have self-awareness in situations, we can see what truly matters to us. It's so funny to me, and not funny, it's fascinating to me how multiple people can go through a similar circumstance, a similar experience, because it doesn't have to be bad or good, but they have a different lesson in it. There's a different metaphor for them. There's a different learning experience. They remember different aspects of it. And so by understanding what is highlighted to you through your self-awareness, you're able to align your purpose to it and see how, of course that I'm going to pay attention when people talk about things they've been through and how they want to help people. Of course that's highlighted to me in a conversation where someone else may completely miss that. They may hear something completely different from that. And so your purpose is deepened through your self-awareness. Better stress management. We all can use stress management. I was talking I just got back from an event, a 4-day, it was 4 days, event with the Gary Sinise Foundation called Snowball Express. And we were talking about how our, things in our closet, our closet is shrinking, our clothes. And, we joke about it. We realize, but we've talked about how the cortisol and how stress is making us gain weight. And so by being able to understand what causes us stress, because even as we were talking about, we didn't have the same stressors. Even though we have similar parenting, we have multiple children, about the same age range, there's similarities, but what stresses us out is different. And so something that may help someone else in stress management is not going to help you, maybe not going to help me. When we have a self-awareness, we understand our stress, we can manage it better. And that doesn't come from in a book. We can't read a book and be able to implement this. This is really, the books may give us tools, but until we crack open the self-awareness and understand, we don't know how to use it for ourselves. The next is improved leadership skills. So this is one of my favorite things because along with purpose is understanding that when you dive into self-leadership, which is a form, it's a byproduct from self-awareness. It's like the next step, the next level. When you become self-aware, you can start leading yourself in the direction and leading because we don't, just because we don't feel like something doesn't mean we don't do it. I mean, I don't feel like going to the dentist, and yet I know it's best for me. I don't feel like paying bills, but if I don't, there's big consequences. And so the improved leadership skills are if we understand what aspects of it we're not looking forward to. Excuse me. If we can, leaders who are self-aware can motivate, can inspire, can have understanding, have the empathy I mentioned, have the confidence to lean into, who they're called to be. So you have these better leadership skills. You're able to develop them because you understand the why behind the why. That you understand how it resonates with you and how to go deeper with it. The next one is the adaptability to change. Life is changing at a rapid pace. If you're not willing to change, then it's there's so many. I mean, let's just look at technology. How much has changed with just the AI introduced to the common folk, 2 years ago. It's exponential change. When we understand ourselves, we can understand how to manage the changes, how to keep similarities, how to, what to change when. And we understand that when we recognize our resistance to change, then we can navigate that clearer. And so self-awareness is so much more than just, like, oh, I need to rest, or I need to be with my friends to fill up my cup. It's more of like, why do you need to be with your friends to fill up your cup? What about the friends help you in this situation? There's a lot more to it. And that's one of the things we're going to explore is this whole idea of, do you know if you're self-aware? Do you know what it even means? Do you have a checklist? Did you know that there is a checklist? I've actually created a checklist of, if you understand these aspects of, and if these are areas you can grow in, then your self-awareness level rises. I'm in process, hopefully next week. So actually this podcast will come out on a Monday, hopefully within the next couple of days, the self-awareness quiz. And it will help you identify the areas that you're doing great and areas that you can lean into for better understanding of yourself. And then, but the adaptability to change is when we understand our resistance to change, we understand how to handle it. We know what aspects, we know what we can lean into for the confidence. We know where we can, maybe take baby steps and where we can take those giant leaps. And then the last thing that I want to talk about, and there's so much more, but when we are self-aware, we have a deeper personal growth. You should not be tomorrow who you are today. You should not be tomorrow who you were a year ago, 5 years ago. Like, I even think about 10 years ago, where was I? I was 34. I was 2 years into this widow journey. I am definitely not the same person I was 10 years ago. And I am so thankful for that. I have grace and I have compassion for the Tammy of 10 years ago. But I know that the self-awareness journey has led me to be stronger, more adaptable, more flexible. I lean into my strengths more than focusing on my weaknesses. I can show up in a different way because I am self-aware. I also know where my limitations are, and I find ways to find either people to help me with that, or I journal about that, or more importantly, I go to God about that and say, okay, God, what do you want? You know how you created me. Why do I have this limitation? And what do you want me to do about it? But this deeper personal growth is where, if there's something more you want, this is where you're going to find it. We forget how much God's put insight to us in our hearts. Getting quiet and leaning into how He created us and how He wired us is one of the greatest gifts we can give to ourselves and to the world. And when we have this self-awareness and we start, and it is a journey. Like, if you ever believe you are 100% self-aware, you're already outdated, because we're constantly changing as our environments change, as we grow. We don't want to stay. Like, I'm more self-aware now than I was, 2 weeks ago, because there was a question that someone asked me, and I was like, I need to ponder that a little bit. And I learned about myself during that. So it is a journey. And even this checklist that I have, it's not one and done. Like, my core values, my first 5 core values are pretty stable. But depending on the environment and my circumstances, the next 5 to 10 of them, they kind of weave in and out of each other, of the order of importance, which is okay. And if I didn't lean into the self-awareness and understanding why my values change, what's going on in my life that I needed to put this over that. I needed to put, faith is always done. That's not a very good example. Well, let's see, finishing things. Like I don't know where I'm going with that. So but if I wasn't self-aware, if I wasn't looking at, okay, what's important to me right now? What's important in this season? My faith and my family are the 2 most important things to me. And if I did not know, if I didn't ask myself, okay, what of these actions, what of these things is my best yes? What are these choices that I have actually align with who God's created me to be, then I may take something that seems like it's the right move, or it may seem like it's something that I want. But until I get quiet and really look within to see, okay, God, how does this line with where you have me heading? Then I may get off track, and which causes stress. And then I have to, understand the stress and have better management. But all of that is to say that we don't spend enough time truly understanding self-awareness, truly understand and what it means to be self-aware. My next podcast, I will do that. Like, what does it mean to be self-aware? That, the difference between the 90% and the 10%. What were the things that were different there? And so I'll go through that, like that checklist I was talking about that I created, because it's something that you can, like go down the list and you can start identifying things and become more understanding of yourself. And so it's this self-awareness is so much more than just like, do I need a massage, or do I need a night out with the girls, or a date night? It's really understanding, am I making the best decision for myself? What framework do I use to make decisions? Where's my confidence? Where does my confidence lie? What aspects of myself can I depend on? What characteristics do I hold that I know that are, from God and that are my gifts? These questions that we ask ourselves are not just lip service. It's not just something that's like, oh, it'd be great to know. It's a need to know. Because when we really understand how God wired us, we can show up as our authentic self. We can be vulnerable in a way that manages the, sharing what we need to share, but not share too much. We can share parts of ourselves that we want to be seen and heard, because we have this need. We want to be seen and heard and for ourselves. But if you don't know who you are, who are you showing them? And so I just thought it was important today that we talk about, because I keep like, oh yeah, of course I'm self-aware. I know what I need and how to take care of myself. It's like, okay, yes. And do you know how to lead yourself? Do you know your core values? Do you know how to manage your stress? And not just the tips and tricks you see on the expert Instagram, but do you really know the few things that if you did these 2 or 3 things, that your stress levels would be managed a lot easier? And that comes from you, not from outside. And so I want to encourage you to take a few moments and ask yourself if any of these things that you want in your life, and get on a call with me. Let's talk about because even I mentioned like imposter syndrome, and the more we understand ourselves, the less we look externally for validation and for answers. And we can look internally at how God wired us. And we can look at Him and find and discover about ourselves, versus looking to people who we want to be told about ourselves. And it's so important, because as much as your best friend knows you, God knows you more. And there's aspects that even your best friend, you can say that they know you inside and out, but there's still aspects of you that you haven't explored yet. So how would they know it as well? And so I want to encourage you, go through this list, take some notes. I'll put some, the highlights in the show notes will be listed. Are you doing the work of self-awareness, and how could it enhance your life? If you were self-aware, how could your life be changed for the better? How can you manage situations? How can you reduce stress? How can you lead yourself and others? How can you manage change? How can you step into your purpose? Because friend, you were called to something important and to something great. And understanding what you're called to is more than just what you're good at. It's who God's called you to be. So get on a call with me. It's a free call, no obligation, but let's talk about how understanding your self-awareness can get you to that next level, to break the success feeling. Because I know so many, I talked to you about, like, I know I'm successful. I know I'm good at what I do, but I don't know why. I don't know how to get what's next. And I want to be more fulfilled. I want taking the success and turning it into significance. That's what self-awareness does. And I want to help you. I want to guide you through that journey to turn that success into significance, to turn the impact and create a legacy with it, and to shine your light so others can shine theirs. So if that interests you, get on my calendar. Let's chat. Let's talk about what's possible. And I can't wait to see you step into who you're called to be. And it really doesn't have to be hard. It can be as easy as asking yourself these questions about self-awareness. So, all right. Well, I hope you guys have an amazing Monday or whatever day you're listening to this podcast. I'm so grateful for you. And if you have not left me a rate and review for this podcast, please consider doing that. It helps me understand what you like about the show. It helps the algorithms, even more importantly, all these dreaded algorithms, know that you like the show and will refer it to others who like similar things to you. It also just helps the algorithm know that it's a podcast that people are listening to. And so it would be a big gift for me if you wouldn't mind doing that. And I appreciate it so much. So with that, choose joy until joy chooses you. And I will see you soon. Bye for now.